Chapter 673, Sealing Spell. Confirming his fears, Lumion slipped his key into the lock, easing the door to the suite open without a sound. Now he knew without a doubt that Ludwig, the terrifying sealed creature, would unleash his hunger and frenzy at the Dream Festival. Beneath the crimson moonlight streaming through the window, Lugano thrashed wildly, his face twisted in agony. Lurking at the end of his flailing arm was Ludwig, dressed in a child's nightcap and sky-blue pajamas dotted with yellow stars. The sickening sounds of bones crunching and flesh tearing filled the air. Amidst the chaos, droplets of blood splattered onto the floor. Suddenly, Ludwig lunged forward like a frenzied animal, his jaws closing in on Lugano's arm with a sickening crack. "Ah!" Lugano's scream pierced the air once more, threatening to blow the roof. Instinctively, he tried to wrench his arm free from Ludwig's grasp and shove the creature away with his other hand. Pain seared through him, and he felt himself teetering on the edge of unconsciousness. Observing Ludwig closely, Lumion darted behind him, his nostrils flaring. Two beams of white light shot forth from his nose, enveloping Ludwig. Ludwig paused, shutting his eyes. But before Lumion could react, the boy's mouth resumed its relentless assault on Lugano's arm, pulverizing bone and flesh alike. His eyes snapped open. The spell of Harumph can only daze Ludwig for a moment, and that's only if he's sealed, Lumion reminded himself, taking a deep breath to steady his nerves. He glanced at Lugano, who had noticed him but was too consumed by agony to speak. Raising a hand, Lumion motioned for Lugano to remain patient. Though Lugano's mind raced with curses and frustration, he remained unable to voice them. As thoughts raced through his mind, Lumion gave an imperceptible nod. Changing his focus, Lumion bypassed Ludwig, who was engrossed in devouring Lugano, and seized Lugano's shoulder. In an instant, Lumion retrieved a sharp straight sword he had acquired from Port Santa, pulling it from his traveler's bag. What is he trying to do? Amidst the throes of pain, Lugano's thoughts scattered. With a swift motion, Lumion swung the sword, the blade bursting into white flames. The fiery sword crashed down upon Lugano's arm, where Ludwig had been feasting, striking at the joint. With a sharp sound, Lugano's forearm tore away from Ludwig's grasp, leaving behind a gory, truncated limb. Simultaneously, Lumion's form began to fade, and even Lugano, whom he had grasped, vanished from sight. Teleport! But Lumion hadn't gone far. Both he and Lugano reappeared at the suite's doorway. The agony persisted, but Lugano's momentary relief vanished as Ludwig's figure once again came into view. The sight of the boy, his mouth still bloody with Lugano's remaining forearm, sent a shiver down his spine. The fear momentarily eclipsed the pain, and Lugano's mind raced with frantic questions. Why not teleport away from Tizimo? Why not teleport to Port Pylos? Why are we still lingering in front of Ludwig? Meanwhile, Ludwig had turned his attention to the doorway, his blonde hair matted with blood, his brown eyes glinting with ravenous hunger. With the speed of a child his age, he advanced toward Lumion and Lugano, all the while chewing and swallowing what remained of Lugano's arm. Unperturbed, Lumion calmly returned the straight sword to his traveler's bag. Under Lugano's horrified gaze, Lumion conjured an entire almond pistachio cream 1,000-layer cake and hurled it onto the floor beside Ludwig. Ludwig's sprint slowed, as he seemed to ponder which delicacy to indulge in first. Ultimately, he turned his attention back to Lugano. The sight of blood, flesh, and marrow infused with spiritual essence seemed to intoxicate him even further. Capitalizing on Ludwig's momentary indecision, Lumion delved into his traveler's bag once more, extracting a fragment of Hisoka's corpse and tossing it aside. Ludwig's gaze followed the offering, his lips instinctively moistening, yet he made no move to change course. It seemed he found the offering beneath his tastes, too dirty to be his top choice. Lumion systematically tossed out ingredients brimming with spiritual energy, one after the other, creating a barrier of tempting treats around Ludwig. Cream pancakes, fruit tarts, sandwiches oozing with cream, boucher à la Rieni, chocolates infused with liquor, cookies, candied plums, eclairs, charlotte desserts, and a myriad of other delicacies formed a tempting ring around Ludwig, impeding his advance toward Lugano. Turning to Lugano with a stern expression, Lumien's voice took on a commanding tone. "What are you waiting for? Stem the bleeding first." Startled, Lugano obeyed, his left palm emitting a faint glow as he applied pressure to the stump of his injured arm. As Ludwig indulged in the feast laid out before him, his urgency waned. Though still concerned for Lugano, he no longer rushed forward. In the final stages, Lumien threw out boxes of biscuits, sweets, beef jerky, and assorted provisions, encircling Ludwig with a haphazard yet effective wall of food. Nearly all of Lumien's 7 days' worth of rations for Ludwig had been deployed from his traveler's bag. What's the meaning of this? Lugano, having successfully treated his wound and eased his pain, watched Lumien's actions with bewilderment. He couldn't fathom why his employer was so fixated on feeding Ludwig in the midst of their predicament. "Sealing that fellow," Lumien replied calmly, his hands never ceasing their task. "Sealing?" Lugano nearly doubted his hearing. "Isn't this too absurd? Using food to seal a monster?" He couldn't recall ever encountering such a concept, not even in the most far-fetched novels on the market. No author would dream up such a peculiar method. Wouldn't a conventional seal involve the use of spiritually potent materials to inscribe mystical symbols and patterns, followed by ritualistic magic or the employment of a mystical artifact? What possible purpose could hurling food at the monster serve? Lumien smiled and sighed. "Once he's satiated, he won't have any appetite left for you or anyone else here. And there's enough food to keep him occupied until dawn, and possibly even beyond." Lumien had devised this plan upon realizing that Ludwig's sole desire was to eat. Coupled with his behavior during the Dream Festival, Lumien was confident that Ludwig was now driven purely by his insatiable hunger, a unique trait exclusive to him in Tizimo. In this scenario, as long as Ludwig's appetite was sated, he could remain confined within the suite, feasting without posing a threat to others. What was the distinction between this and traditional sealing methods? Of course, the success of this makeshift seal depended on the Dream Festival, concluding before Ludwig depleted the 7 days' worth of food. Otherwise, Lumien's ability to hunt in the forest might not keep pace with Ludwig's voracious appetite. Lugano's understanding dawned upon hearing Lumien's explanation. Indeed, this method offered a practical means of temporarily restraining Ludwig. Who said it couldn't be deemed a seal? Understanding one's target's preferences and weaknesses allowed for the implementation of a seal without resorting to mysticism. Observing Ludwig still attempting to approach the door amidst his feast, Lumien realized the creature's reluctance to part with Lugano. With a swift movement, he grasped Lugano's shoulder and teleported them both to a corner of the second-floor stairwell in the police headquarters. Ludwig briefly glanced at the vacant doorway before refocusing on his culinary conquest within the suite. "Are you certain everything's under control?" Lugano inquired anxiously the moment he exited the spirit world. Lumien chuckled in response. "As long as no beyonder happens to stroll by the door, he won't abandon his feast." Relieved, Lugano exhaled deeply, casting a rueful glance at his remaining arm. Thoughts swirled in his mind as he contemplated his future. "At least I'm still alive, as long as I'm alive. In the future, I'll see if I can save up enough money to afford a mechanical arm from the Church of Steam. That might bolster my combat strength." The doctor's expertise could only do so much, as transplanting another's limb was beyond the realm of possibility. Camus and Rhea, observing Lugano's bloody limb, furrowed their brows, recalling Louis Barry's ominous warning of a greater issue. "What happened?" Camus inquired. Lumien smiled. "It's a complication caused by that big problem, but I've managed to seal it temporarily. Just remember, stay away from the Brieux Motel, especially the door on the second-floor suite." Relieved to hear that Louis Barry had intervened, Camus assured Lugano. "Thankfully, it's all just a dream. You'll be fine once you wake up." "A dream?" Lugano was perplexed. Lumien offered no further explanation, simply remarking, "Indeed, it's a dream. But remember, if you perish in the dream, you perish in reality too." Amid Lugano's bafflement, Lumien redirected said to Camus and Rhea, "Let's make our way to Tuanaku's house now." His primary objective in investigating the Dream Festival was to locate Hisoka's gold and the item acquired from the Noise family's demon. He intended to assess any changes in their respective locations following the festival's commencement. If nothing surfaced, Lumion planned to seek out Padre Kali at the Saint Seine Cathedral. The peculiar condition of weakness in the depths of the spirit body, possessed by Padre Kali in reality, set him apart from everyone else in Tizimo. This hinted at something distinctly special about the Padre. Additionally, it was Padre Kali who had officially inaugurated the Dream Festival. Camus hesitated, his silence suggesting he might have pressing matters to attend to. In that moment, Ria regarded Lumion with confusion, gesturing towards Lugano. Why is he still lucid?